Hi, it's Mining44 here, and today I invite you to a review of the Runcam Scopecam 2 camera. The camera was provided by my good friend Boreq from Boreq Airsoft. I strongly encourage you to check out his channel. If you plan to start recording gameplays for YouTube and you want to be able to show your viewers exactly every hit, a camera with a zoom on a replica in form of a Scopecam is a must. I started with a camera converted for this purpose in form of a Foxeer Legend 2, to later switch to the dedicated equipment that is Runcam Scopecam Lite, the review of which can be found on the channel. However, both cameras have their problems and I looked at something new for more than once. And because Boreq bought a Runcam Scopecam 2 model with a 25mm lens and suggested that I test it and make an episode about it, I did so. So today we'll see how the camera is built, what functions it has and how it works. But let's start with a small unboxing. The camera comes to us in a black cardboard box with a manufacturer's logo and basic information about the camera. Inside we'll find short user manual in Chinese and English, USB-C cable for charging the camera, and the Runcam Scopecam 2 camera itself. Let's take a closer look at it. The whole camera is made of aluminium, which should provide it with high survivability on the battlefield. On the side you will find the inscription Scopecam 2 and on the back Runcam. Additionally, thanks to the seal, it's IP64 water resistant, so it will work in rain, which I tested during one game. The camera with a 25mm lens measures approximately 95.2mm in length, 32.14mm in width and approximately 35mm in height with the mount, and weighs approximately 179 grams. For comparison, Scopecam Lite is only 78 grams. The size of the camera does not differ much from the other cameras that I have used, and compared to the Lite, it is even narrower. The lens from the front is protected by a protective glass, and after unscrewing the tube, we have access to the lens itself. There is an O-ring here, so we don't have to be afraid of playing in the rain. The wrist rail mounting has a spring, thanks to which the mounting of the camera on the replica is very simple. Just push the screw, put the camera on the rail, and tighten the screw. Because the screw has a small handle, you do not need additional tools to tighten the camera. The camera is also very stable on the rail and we don't have to worry that it will move itself during the game, as was the case in the Lite model. On the back of the camera there is a USB-C socket for charging the camera and data transfer. Under the cover we find a place for a microSD memory card. According to the manufacturer, the camera supports cards with capacity of up to 128GB. However, on the cards of this capacity I had problems with recordings, so for safety I would rather recommend 64GB, on which I did not encounter a problem. Runcam recommends Samsung cards and that's what I used. There are two buttons on the top of the camera. The front push button is used to activate the Wi-Fi function. After pressing it for a longer time, the camera will vibrate 3 times and the button itself will blink alternately red and purple. The rear LED will be lit continuously. To turn off Wi-Fi, press and hold it again and the camera will vibrate once. The second button is used to start recording. When you move it forward, the camera will vibrate twice and start recording. The top Wi-Fi button and the back LED will blink red quite slowly. If the flashing is faster and there is additional vibration, it means that the camera has encountered some problem and it's not recording. To stop recording, move the button back, the camera will vibrate once and then turn off. The button moves quite hard, so we don't have to worry about its accidental switching. While recording, we can turn on the Wi-Fi function, but it will stop the recording. The camera has a built-in battery with capacity of 1400 mAh, which according to the manufacturer is fully charged in about 120 minutes. To charge it, just plug the USB-C cable to the camera and power source, such as a computer, wall charger or a power bank. While charging, the LED will be green, and when the battery is full, the LED will turn off. You can charge and record at the same time. According to the manufacturer, a full charge should be enough for over 240 minutes or over 4 hours, and I took the liberty of checking it out. In the 1080p 60fps mode, the camera, after being fully charged, recorded continuously for 4 hours and 23 minutes, which means that in a standard game day we can forget about the additional power bank on the replica. For me, it's an absolute revelation. I will add that these 4 hours of recordings are about 57 GB of data, so a 64 GB card will suffice. Now let's see what functions we have access to through the application. If you watch the Runcam Scopecam Lite review, you will notice that most of the options are the same. After turning on the Wi-Fi function, you just need to search for the camera through the application and connect to it. You will also need to enter the password the first time. After connecting to the camera, we'll see a live image preview. We have quite a few functions to fine-tune the image, such as white balance, I recommend leaving it on auto, exposure, Boreq set it to -0.3 to make the image a bit darker, contrast, sharpness, ISO, I recommend leaving it on auto, color saturation, shutter speed, I also recommend leaving it on auto, light metering mode, Boreq uses spot. We also have the option of rotating the image in case we want to mount the camera under the replica. From the available resolutions we can choose 720p 90fps, 1080p 30fps, 1080p 50fps, and 1080p 60fps. We also have access to recordings on the camera. We can view them in the application and download small files to the phone. There is also full screen preview function. You can initiate recording from the application level, but I do not recommend using this function. In my case, the application showed that the camera was recording, but in fact it stopped after a few seconds from starting. We also have access to additional settings such as auto sync time, automatic time synchronization with the phone, date stamp. Thanks to this function, the date and time will be visible on the recordings. Auto shutdown is a function of automatic shutdown of the camera. Front light. This is a function thanks to which we can turn off the light on the top of the camera during recording. Audio, whether the camera should record sound. Loop recording. This is a recording over and over again. The oldest recordings are deleted and the new ones are written over. You can set the length of the clip between 1, 3 or 5 minutes. Flashback. This is a function cooperating with the cable to initiate the flashback recordings. Power supply frequency. The function is set depending on the frequency of the power grids. In Poland it's 50 Hz. After setting this function, artificial lighting will not flicker on the recordings. Next we have Wi-Fi settings and memory cards. We can see the capacity of the card here and format it. Language and software versions is last. The camera records 2 files at once in MP4 format. One is full resolution set by us, in my case 1080p 60fps. The maximum file size that can be created is 3.74 GB, which includes 18 minutes of recording. Bitrate of recording is almost 30 megabits per second. The second clip is in 480 30fps resolution and in bitrate around 1.6 megabits per second. These clips are used for preview in the app, and I haven't found an option to disable recording them. As for the quality of the recordings, it's just fine. The sound is still very quiet, but compared to the light, it's of better quality. It is sufficient to synchronize the recordings. There is also no gap between clips and we don't lose a second of recordings, which again was a problem with the Lite model. The camera was with me on one game and it did very well. The shots you see now are from this camera. Runcam Scopecam 2 is available in 2 versions. Today reviewed with a 25mm lens, it is recommended for short and medium distance games. And the version with 40mm lens is recommended by the manufacturer for sniper rifles. Due to the fact that during the review I bought the version with the 40mm lens, we can make a small comparison. On the left we see the image of the 25mm version, and on the right is 40mm version. The difference in the image contrast is due to the fact that when I was shooting with the 40mm lens, the sun was shining directly into the lens. The target you see has a diameter of 60 cm, but for scale I will add a silhouette of a person 175 cm tall, and so we start with 30 meters. 40 meters, 50 meters, 60 meters, 70 meters and 80 meters. So as you can see, the difference is significant. I will recommend the camera with a 25mm lens for shots even below 30 meters and not further than 60 meters. A camera with 40mm lens will usually work better in the entire range of 30 to 80 meters or even less. Just remember that if you plan to additionally stabilize your recordings in post-production, the image will naturally be additionally enlarged. So in close-up shots, it may turn out that you will lose part of the image for stabilization. It shouldn't be a big problem because the camera sits stably on the rail and doesn't move much, so hits should fall more or less in the middle of the recordings anyway. In my case, however, you can see that the hits from a short distance fall closer to the top of the image, but this may largely depend on the replica and how straight the rail is in relation to the barrel. If we want to download recordings from the camera, we can do it by removing the memory card from the camera and using e-reader, or by connecting the USB-C cable and downloading the recordings in this way. The camera can be additionally started in a webcam mode, but apart from the desire, for example, to change focus, I don't see a specific use case for this mode. To wrap up, Runcam Scopecam 2 is, in my opinion, a must-have item for someone who wants to start recording airsoft for YouTube and expects good quality recordings and trouble-free operation. Rugged aluminium waterproof construction, 1080p 60 fps and the ability to record continuously for over 4 hours. The camera has everything you need to record footage without any extra worries. I like that mounting the camera on the wrist rail is so simple and does not require additional tools. And the camera itself is very stable. I also like that the camera vibrates instead of beeping, because you can feel it clearly through the replica, so if something happens and we will be in a loud environment, we'll certainly notice the information thanks to the vibration on the replica. The sliding button is also a nice idea, because you can clearly see what mode the camera is in. I would also include water resistance as a big plus, because when I played with older cameras in the rain, I used to wrap them up so they did not get wet. The thing that I don't like is that the camera always records 2 clips, a big one and a small one, and there is no way to disable this feature. I have mixed feelings about the operation of the camera with 128GB cards, because despite using Samsung Class 10 U3 cards, it happened that the camera did not want to record. In addition, the recordings with the preview function is broken, and while I was filming this review, I lost a lot of recording because of it and I had to start from the beginning. Nevertheless, despite these small problems, the camera is really worth recommending, because compared to what I have used so far, its quality and functions are at a really high level. The camera on the Runcam website, regardless of the lens version, costs less than $140. And if we need a higher resolution, there is also a 4K version of the camera that shoots, among others, 2.7K 60 fps and 4K 30 fps. But such pleasure is more expensive, and on the manufacturer's website it's almost $190. That's all for today. Let me know if you liked today's episode and what do you think about the Runcam Scopecam 2 camera, and if you use one, how does it work for you? And for now, thanks for watching and see you next time.